Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Nate, your dad, and this is Dads Who Mosh. Um, Welcome back to another episode of the Dads Who Mosh podcast. Good to be with you guys. I know it's been a couple of weeks since we've put one of these out, so it is good to be back in the saddle again. Had a lot of things going on. Had a great week last week. Actually went to the Grand Canyon with my family. One of the funny things about living in Arizona is we moved here from Montana. And so like when you tell, it's so funny, like people in Montana just like love Montana. And Montana's cool for its own reasons, but like a lot of people that were born and raised in Montana just like it's Montana till I die. Like they can't even imagine living anywhere else, even though they're paying, $3,000 a month to rent a two-bedroom apartment there. Um, but when we tell people like, yeah, we're moving to Arizona, we got so many people that were like, how can you like, why do you want to live in Arizona? It's just hot. It's just the desert. There's no mountains. There's nothing to do that, all this stuff because, and Montana is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But like in their mind, it's like nothing is like Montana. Well, secret's out, okay? And people that live in Arizona know this. People that have actually spent a good amount of time in Arizona know this. Arizona is beautiful. Like anything that you may get, like in Montana, as far as like mountains and landscapes and just like this beautiful scenery, guess what? We have it in Arizona too. So my family and I, we drove a few hours to this place called Williams, Arizona, which is like about an hour away from the Grand Canyon. Got to the Grand Canyon on a Thursday. It was the first time I've ever been to the Grand Canyon. So of course it's beautiful. It doesn't even look real. Like it's when you're standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon, you're like, "Oh, cool. Like there's a giant green screen in front of me and this is all CGI. It doesn't even look real." But it's real and it's amazing and we walked around and got to see all kinds of things at the Grand Canyon. What's funny about the Grand Canyon is I've never been there, but I think I was probably married and I was out of the house. My mom and dad had to take my youngest brother down to Mexico. He's going to be spending some time in Mexico working at an orphanage down there. And so my mom, my dad, and then both of my younger brothers kind of took a road trip from Montana down to San Diego to drop my brother off down there. And so on their way down, the four of them stayed at the Grand Canyon, and they camped at the Grand Canyon, and it was monsoon season, so it was just like this horrible, miserable, um, you know, camping experience. And there's a really funny story that's connected with all that, but I know that my mom listens to these podcasts sometimes, and for the sake of my mom, I will not tell you that story. Initially, I was going to tell that story, but then all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, that's right. She probably wouldn't appreciate that. But I had never, so I didn't get to go with them. So this was my first time at the Grand Canyon. Got to do it with my family. Amazing. It was really cool. But then the next day, it snowed nonstop. It was April, um, right before Easter. So like the 18th or something like that, April 18th, snowed nonstop, like blizzard, whiteout blizzard all day when we were there. So we just kind of hunkered down in our Airbnb, turned the fireplace on. We've been watching, my family and I have been watching the show The Middle. If you guys remember that show, The Middle, which is so funny because, it's just like a super family friendly sitcom. We can watch it with the kids, but it's funny now as like adults, like my wife and I. I feel like we watched it when it first came out. We watched some of it, but it's funny now watching shows like that and watching shows like Everybody Loves Raymond. Like my wife and I love Everybody Loves Raymond, but it's like the older you get and the more you go through in life, like the more you start to appreciate it. Cause like my parents watched Everybody Loves Raymond back in the day. And, I thought it was funny, as a kid, but it's like once you like get married, and you have kids and you go through like toddlers, you get into like the teenage stage and you deal with in-laws and you've got all these things and you deal with being married for a long time. Like shows like that, you just appreciate more and more. And so we just hunkered down, and probably watched like hours and hours of The Middle while the snow was falling. A super fun vacation. So, but I'm back at it today. Back at it this week with work and all of that stuff after Easter weekend. We're all sick. Our whole family is sick. We shared, the germs. So if I sound a little stuffy, that's part of it. It probably didn't help that in that like the peak of my cold. I went to a terror show last night. Obituary. It was like, dude, so funny. So this lineup was like, I love it when heavy bands do this. It's almost like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know who puts these like tickets together, like who puts these lineups together, but sometimes they're like, it's a loud band, like they fit. But the lineup was Pest Control, who's sick. Pest Control is great. Pest Control is like it's like a British, they're like a British hardcore thrash kind of a band, and they were great. They were a ton of fun. Um, dude, Spirit World, not Spirit Box, but Spirit World. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Spirit World. But I was just like, dude, I can't. I can't do it. I can't do the gimmicks, right? Like I can't do gimmicky bands. It's like Guar. I know. I mean, like Guar has this whole like cult following. I can't do it, dude. I can't do the prosthetics. I can't do people dressing up like monsters. It's just so stupid to me. And I know, like, whatever. It has its place. There are people out there that love it. Awesome. Insane Clown Posse. Can't do it, dude. I mean, not only does their music suck, but it's just like the face paint, the gimmicks, spring grape soda all over the crowd. Like, I'm just like, this is stupid, dude. Like, put on clothes and play a hardcore show. But like Spirit World, if you're not familiar with them, they're from Vegas, which explains a lot. But it's just like they all dress up in like glitzy, like Western attire. Um, and like cowboy hats and stuff. And I'm just like, dude, I'm just not into it. Some of their songs are cool, but it's like, maybe I'm being super judgmental, but it's like if you were wearing shorts and a t-shirt, I would think the song was cooler. It just like kills it for me with what they wear. It's the gimmicky thing. It's like I can't listen to. It's like I feel like Avenged Sevenfold is super gimmicky. Like I mean, it's like even if people like I don't know, man. Like, if people are just trying way too hard to fit like a certain mold or aesthetic or something like that, I'm like, dude, just be normal. Like, I don't care. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, just be yourself. Don't try so hard. So, anyways, I could not get into it. I cannot get into Spirit World. But then after them was Terror. Um, And Terror's just amazing, man. Terror has been on my, not only has like seeing Terror live been on my bucket list for a long time, but doing a stage dive at a Terror show has been because like if you're familiar, like there's a lot of memes out there too about like Scott Vogel, the vocalist from Terror, and like how many stage dives like he needs in a show. But it's just like the vibes and the energy at a Terror show are just like unmatched. It's so fun. I was talking with my oldest son about this too, because I did two stage dives last night, which is big for me, like in my, later 30s. It's a big deal. But I was kind of telling him, I was like, I know a lot of people from the outside look at shows like that and they're like, oh, it's so scary. Everybody looks so angry. It's wild. It's crazy. Like everybody's trying to hurt each other. Like it could so, I mean, and those of you that know, I'm just preaching the choir, but it's like it could not be further from reality. Like everybody's taking care of each other. The band's making sure that everyone's taken care of, all of that good stuff. So the vibes were just immaculate with Terror. Super fun show. That was like just the highlight of the night was seeing those guys. Nails played after them. I've got the Nails merch here. Um, like I said, I've been trying to not get black t-shirts anymore. It's like whatever t-shirts are there that's not black, that's the one I'm gonna get. So Nails is super cool. I mean, but it's totally different vibes. I think is kind of the point I'm getting after. Like you've got like hardcore thrash with Pest Control, which I mean, like that fits. I could see Pest Control and Terror going on tour. Um, then you've got Spirit World that is just like gimmicky, more thrash, like thrash metal, heavy thrash. And then you've got Terror that's just straight up hardcore. And then you've got Nails, which is like kind of thrashy, crunchy, dark, heavy. And then Obituary, I mean, I didn't even stick around for Obituary. I'm like, dude, I'm not 60 years old. Like, I'm not into like 80s hair metal thrash kind of stuff. Not hair metal, but like I'm not into 80s thrash so much. Um, but it's so funny too because like the best part is the mix of crowds. I mean, you want to talk about dad rock. Like No, Better Lovers is not dad rock. They have like dad rock dudes that like them, but Obituary, dude, so funny. Like the fans of Obituary, like it's just like the crowd there was such a bizarre mix. I think a lot of people that like are not into hardcore kind of like stood back and chilled out during Terror, which kind of left room for like, all the hardcore kids to like have fun during Terror. Um, but it's like I was messaging my cousin and I was like, dude, this crowd is so funny. Like it's like, like you've got people there to see Terror. So you've got like these straight edge hardcore dudes. And then you've got like meth heads coming to see Obituary, like people with no teeth, like, yeah, like, ugh, like headbanging and swinging their like dirty hair around. And just such a bizarre. But, anyways, Nails was cool and Terror was awesome. It was a really good night. So, it's just like it's so funny. Like, I was like, I don't know, it's Tuesday night. I guess I'll go down the Nile and see Terror. Like it's just the Nile's just the best. It's the best place in the world. No barriers. Just like the coolest venue ever. Love that sniffling. I should be drinking tea, but I'm drinking coffee. So, anyways, there's let's see, we got some cool shows coming up in the future. I think I mentioned them. I'm gonna go try to go see like the Bouncing Souls and H2O. Excited for that. I've been listening to a lot of Toby Morse's podcast, the One Life, One Chance podcast. So, it's I'm excited to go see like him and his band play. Architects in July. Excited to see Architects. Let's see what else we got going on. Furnace Fest, of course, in October. Actually, right when I get back from Furnace Fest in October. Ooh, yeah, excited. October is going to be the best month. I was talking to my buddy Travis about this. I'm like, October is going to be like the best month for shows. Going to go to Furnace Fest at the beginning of October when I come back. The Story So Far is playing with Neck Deep and Pain of Truth. So super excited. There's another band on that ticket, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I just knew that I hadn't listened to them a lot, but yeah, not story of the year. The Story So Far, Neck Deep, Pain of Truth. Super excited for that one. That's stopping here in Mesa, uh, and then Kublai Khan, TX, Gideon. Um, who else is on that one? Oh, Drain. And one more is on that tour. Who's going to be on that tour? I need to see. It was funny because the Marquee Theater is a venue here in Tempe, and they announced the show before the bands announced the show. Um, and so like I sent the video to my buddy Travis and I was like, "Oh dude, these guys like this is going to be such a sick lineup." And then he's like, "Oh, the post is deleted because they posted it before the bands even announced it." Kublai Khan TX, Drain, Gideon, oh, and Guilt Trip. So such a sick lineup. That's going to be a fun one. It's funny because all four of those guys are going to be at Furnace Fest. Well, I'll go see all four of those bands at Furnace Fest, come back in a couple weeks later, see them here in my state. So bunch of cool shows coming up. Super excited about all of that. Album or perfect album today. That's the next segment. I want to talk about a perfect album. This band has been on my mind a lot recently. I mean, they're on my mind all the time because they're one of my favorite bands. But my buddy Steven has been sending me a bunch of like, clips of shows and stuff like that. But it's Blink-182. I love Blink-182. Obviously Blink-182 when I saw them here in Arizona 2 years ago now. No, last year. Anyways, just like super nostalgic. I know we're like the nostalgia generation, or like, every generation likes nostalgia, but like millennials are like super nostalgic. And I've kind of talked about that before. I think a big part of that is because like when we were kids, like life was so good as millennial kids, and I just don't think we understood how good it was. Like that last generation before social media and iPads and all this stuff that going on is just this different world that kids grow up in now. The world where we really could just like leave our houses and maybe stop by for meals to make sure we ate, and then just not come home until the street lights come on. Like it sounds romantic and it sounds cliche, but that really was our life, man. It was really so good. But I remember like as a kid, you can't wait to grow up. I can't wait to like have my own life. I can't wait to do all these amazing things. And then like like millennials hit adulthood, and so it's like you can't afford college, you can't afford a house, you can't afford groceries. Like this world that your parents grew up in is not there anymore. and life is really tough. So Blink 182 is just like it's a super nostalgic band. And I know like I like listening speaking of the One Life, One Chance podcast, I was listening to Toby Morse interview Tom DeLonge, and he was talking about that. Like that's one of the things that he loves about Blink 182 is when you listen to them, you can go right back to just being that kid that's skating around, trying to be rebellious. Like you can remember that feeling. Um, and that's exactly it. Like when I went and watched them play, it's so funny because like um anybody I told, so it was like one of their big tours, like the One More Time tour. So like any millennial that I told I went and saw them on that tour, like no joke, four different people asked me, "Did you cry?" Like, did you cry during the concert? I was like, "Yeah, dude, I cried like three times, like three different distinct times." And I was like, "Oh, oh, oh," but it's just like it brings you back. You're singing along to your favorite songs. And even like the history of the band, they broke up, they got back together. That gives you hope that things can get better in life. They overcame like the breakup and a plane crash with Travis and cancer with Mark, and it's just like they're in their 40s and they're as immature as ever, and you're just like this is awesome. So it's like you grew up and life didn't end up being the way you thought it was going to be, but it's like whatever, maybe I can hop on my skateboard every once in a while and listen to Blink and tell your mom jokes, from time to time. So, but speaking of Blink 182, there's a lot of debate out there about what their best album is. I know that like Enema of the State is one that like a lot of people are like Enema of the State is my favorite Blink album. It's the perfect Blink album. It's when like Blink discovered, really came into who they are and all of this. I did love Enema of the State, but I think my perfect Blink 182 album, it's kind of a toss up, but I did eventually land on Take Off Your Pants and Jacket as my perfect Blink 182 album. And again, as I said a couple episodes ago, like albums that people think are perfect or like top 10 albums or whatever, a lot of it just has to do with the time in your life that you listened to that. And like, yeah, Enema of the State had come out, but and I had listened to, I didn't have that CD. I had like friends that had that CD, so we'd listen to it in their car. But like, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket was the first Blink 182 CD that I went out and bought and listened to like in my room with the volume turned down so my parents gonna hear, or like with headphones on my portable CD player. Um, so it was the first one I bought, and it was really just like it came out in this time where let's see, what year did that come out? 2001? Yeah, 2001. So it comes out in 2001, and it's coming out in this time where like I'm in middle school. I'm like, discovering who I want to be, kind of growing into the person I want to be, like starting to just really resonate with like skate culture and the punk culture and hardcore and stuff like that. You want to be this little rebel and I went to this private Christian school, and so I didn't want to fit in with any of the kids there. Like, there was a couple buddies of mine that, were kind of in the same I guess clique or group, like we like to skate, we like to listen to, punk and hardcore and stuff like that. I was just like coming into my own, and I remember watching the music video for First Date. And just a little bit of backstory here. Sorry, mom, if you're listening to this again, I think I've talked about this. Maybe not. Maybe she doesn't know this. So big reveal here. My so my parents, one year, my parent like we were, we had money, enough money, to make ends meet growing up, but we didn't have a lot of money. So anytime that like my dad would come across like a deal, he would take it, including with like TV. We never had cable or satellite unless there was like a deal where you could sign up, and for a year it was like a monthly price that we could actually afford. And then as soon as that year was up, my dad would cancel it instantly. Yeah, so funny nowadays, like I'll sign up for things. It's like a free week trial. Just make sure you cancel. And I totally forget. And I've got like all these subscriptions still happening that like, my wife's like, what is this on the bill? Like, whoops, sorry. But my dad was just like, he would set his calendar, like the year from now, we have to get rid of, our dish network or whatever. So one year we had satellite TV and it had MTV. My parents locked it, unlocked it instantly, like, and there were a couple of days that This is either a couple of days. I'm only able to say this because I'm not in front of my mom. If I was in front of my mom, I'd never be able to tell her this story. I'd have to like cover my eyes and not see her reaction. But there were a couple of days where I wasn't feeling it, like eighth grade. I didn't want to go to school. So my room was right underneath my parents' room. So I only did this a few times. Okay. And so I would like stand on my bed and make myself cough like towards the ceiling so they could hear me. And I would stay up all night. Like I'd make myself stay awake. I would cough all night so they would hear me. And the next morning, my sweet mother would come downstairs and be like, "Oh man, you sounds like you were coughing all night." Like, yeah, no, I'm not feeling so good. I think I may need to stay home. So I would stay home. I did this a few times. I stayed home and I switched on MTV and I watched music videos all day. That was like back when music videos used to be on. And my favorite one for a long time was First Date. And it was so funny, dude. And it was just like, I loved it. And so I bought that album when it came out. And it's just like, it's one of those albums that I felt like, when you're this rebellious young teenager or preteen or whatever, and it's just like, this is me. This is who I want to be. I wanted to dress like Blink-182. It's like I went out and would like mow lawns and pull weeds and stuff like that and get money so I could go buy like Atticus shirts and go buy like Dickies shorts and, all of this stuff because that's who I wanted to be. This is who I wanted to emulate. And so that whole album is just like, this was like, this is me, like this defines me. And it really did at that time. And that's why it's always stuck with me. I can listen to that album start to finish, not skip a single song, sing along with every single lyric. Anthem Part Two, I love that song. And that's why like when their One More Time album came out and they put out Anthem Part Three, cried, dude. Cried because it just brought me back to 2001. Like Anthem Part 3 came out on their album in 2023. So like 22 years later, I'm listening to this song. It's got like, it sounds a little bit like, Anthem Part 2 is just like a continuation and I'm just like I'm back, dude. I'm 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 in 8th grade, dude. Like I've got my skateboard. It like the sun's out for like one out of the very few days in Missoula, Montana that the sun is out. It's probably like 50 degrees, but all my friends and I are out there with our shorts and t-shirts, just being idiots, like yelling at cars as they drive by, like skating around a parking lot that we're not supposed to be in, just like having the freaking time of my life. And it just like brings you back to that. So I love all of the songs on that album. Um, every single Christmas and every single, 4th of July, I have to listen to Happy Holidays, You Bastard, and make my wife listen to it with me. But, then you got like, you've got their sappy songs like Stay Together for the Kids, man. It was cool because when they did that song live last year, like Tom kind of like has a little scream at the end that he does, like a little like, kind of like a hardcore yell. And it was just like, it was so cool. Um, One of my favorite songs, though, of all time was Give Me One Good Reason. And it's like, give me one good reason why we, should be like them. And it's like, why do I want to conform to everybody around me? Why do I want to be like that? Like, I want to be my own person. And so it's like this album in Blink 182, I feel like was so foundational in like pushing me to be even like the person I am today. It was just like such a foundational album for me. I just was like such a huge fan of the band. I just feel like, and maybe it sounds dorky, but I think a lot of people can look back. And music just has such a huge impact on people. It's wild. Like you can look at how people are dressing and you can guess what kind of music they listen to because a lot of people dress like the bands that they listen to. Like you see a guy wearing Wrangler pants and boots. Like, what kind of music do you think that guy listens to? Like, besides Spirit World, freaking Spirit World. But like you see, I mean, like all I wear is band shirts, so that's kind of a giveaway. Um, but I don't know. Like, you see a girl wearing like trendy clothes, preppy clothes. Like, she probably listens to I was gonna say Selena Gomez, but I know it's like Selena Gomez isn't even who's the big ones nowadays. Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, I don't know. It's like that's what they listen to. You see a guy wearing like a Patagonia fishing shirt. Like if you turn on his car, Hoosier radio is probably on. Like you listen to a bunch of bands from Vermont. Like that's like you can just tell though. Like you can tell what kind of music. But I think that's such a cool thing because music just has such a huge impact on people. And it did. That album had such a huge impact on me and kind of shaped me into like who I am today. And like, it defined me in a lot of ways. And, of course, I was never as rebellious as like thought I was. Like I was wearing a studded bracelet, like a spiky bracelet or something like that. I'm like, yeah, you know, stick it to the man with my spiky bracelet. But um, I don't know, it's one of the perfect albums for me. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket by Blink-182. Perfect album. When I said it was kind of a toss up, it was kind of a toss up between that one and their Untitled album. Because their Untitled album also from start to finish is perfect to me. I think that, and to me, that album really, I know some people are like, well, Enema of the State was when Blink 182 kind of came into their own. For me, their Untitled album was like peak Blink until One More Time came out. Making One More Time to me is another almost perfect album. Um, their Untitled album was, an amazing one. That came out when I was in high school at that point. Um, but I think that Take Off Your Pants and Jacket ends up being the perfect Blink album for me, solely based on the time of my life when it came out and the impact that it had on me when I was a kid. So if you need something to listen to today, go listen to that album. Go spin that one. Um, that's my perfect album that I'm for today. Anyways, sorry, I'm getting a little distracted. Um, I switching gears, right? Dads Who Mosh. My wife sent me this thing the other day. I don't look into it a little bit more, but there's a place that trains barbers. Um, and it trains them not only in like obviously to like do haircuts, but like trains them in how to talk to men about their mental health. And I think that's such a cool thing, because like like my barber John here in Mesa, I had a haircut appointment with him last week, and it's funny because like I talked to him a lot, but like it was just the two of us. Like it was like right when they opened, it was just him and I. And he had like just gone through a breakup. Like he had actually had to reschedule my haircut because like he was dealing with this breakup. So it just ended up being the two of us just sitting in the shop, and the haircut went longer than it usually does, but he was talking to me, so it's like usually it's like the barber is the one like asking somebody about their life and they're telling them. And this time like the roles had kind of reversed, but I was like, this is awesome, man. Like this is what dudes need. Dudes just need like this outlet to talk about things. Like, yeah, he probably gave me way more information than I needed to know, but I was like, who cares, man? Tell me about it. Tell me all about it. Tell me what sucks about this. Tell me what's hard. Tell me what you're going through. Like as dudes, we just need to be there for each other. Like I know it's cheesy, but I always, I make this joke like, all need to know about life I learned from, hardcore music. Like, you go to a terror show and, from stage it's like, Vogel's like, take care of each other, make sure nobody gets hurt. Like we're all in this together. And I think that's like the mentality that men need to have is we need to be in this together. Like it's almost like we have this primal instinct to be competitive or defensive against other men. And I think there's like this camaraderie that we need to build. So that was just kind of a cool thing. I want to look into this place that my wife sent me because I think that's super cool and it like kind of just gets my mind rolling like okay, what are some of these other places like if men have to work, which we all do, it's like how can we talk about mental health while in the workplace and not just have to like set time aside or take a lunch break and talk to my therapist over the phone or whatever. So that was super cool. It was super cool, just to like sit and chat with my friend John, just about what he's going through, just being there for each other. I just was sent this book. Um, this book, I don't know if you can see it. You can kind of see it there on the screen because I've got that fake background. This book's called Holy Hurt, and it's by Hillary McBride. And I know I've mentioned on the podcast before that my family and I like we go to church here in Arizona. I've never wanted this, podcast to be like, too preachy or too just like exclusive to people that go to church or who are Christians or anything like that. But it is like I think it's a big thing. This whole book, Holy Hurt, understanding spiritual trauma and the process of healing, I think is super important. Especially with men, because like there's a term out there that's called church hurt. You may or may not be familiar with it. It's okay if not. It's a term that I think sometimes gets like kind of thrown out there. Like someone will be like, like I used to kind of think that, like when I first started getting tattoos, like I still thought I was super rebellious. So I'd like go to my parents' church and be like, ooh, they hate me because I have a tattoo. Like it's church hurt. Like they don't like me for who I am. Someone will be like, oh, I went to church and I have blue hair and a lady stared at me, so I'll never go to church again. Like I've been hurt by Christians. Like get real. Like you have blue hair because you want people to stare at you. But there are people that have been like really, truly abused by spiritual leaders. And it doesn't even have to be like church leaders. It could be like other religious leaders. There's, all kinds of crazy things out there. I mean, you can watch documentaries on Netflix about churches, about cults, about other religions. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of like abuse out there when it comes to like a spiritual situation, like somebody who is in a position where they are like a spiritual leader to you. Maybe it's a situation where it's like a pastor or something where like they are kind of like this representation of God in people's lives. And there's just like, I mean, these stories are a dime a dozen of these spiritual leaders being abusive and being horrible people and just leaving this trail of hurt. And I know I mentioned to you guys in an earlier podcast that it was hard for my family and I to decide to go back to church because we had been through just such a horrible situation in the church that we had been going to and had been helping out with in Montana. Just like, I mean, some of the worst things that anybody, could go through. At the hands of some of the worst people that have ever existed on this planet, I swear. And they were all Christians, or all self-proclaimed Christians, and pastors. Like, some of the worst things that have ever happened to my family have happened at the hands of some guy who was a pastor. And so like I do get that. And I think, like especially when it comes to like mental health, there is a spiritual aspect to it. I do think of, whether people agree with this or not, I do think that all people are spiritual on a certain level. I think that there are things out there that are bigger than us. I think that, humanity, just like our physical flesh and bone, is not it. Like it's not all that there is. I think there's a spiritual aspect to all of us. And I think we're all looking for that. I think we're all looking for that fulfillment. I do think that the answers are out there. I will, like I said, I don't want to make this a super religious podcast, but I will say that yes, like I am a Christian. Yes, I believe that that spiritual fulfillment that people are looking for is found in Jesus Christ. I will say that. But what sucks is a few things I think along with that. What sucks is there are so many bad people in the church or in the religious realm that it's hard for people to get there. Like there's a lot of people that just like are actual like pretend to be like these gurus or pretend to be like people that will help you along in your spiritual formation or your spiritual life or your spiritual walk. And really all they're doing is destroying you. Like they're taking advantage of the fact that like you want to find this fulfillment, you want to find this inner peace, you want to find this contentment, you want to like plug into like, who God is and you want to discover all those things. And they're just out there to be like, oh, you're looking for something? Why don't you come over here? I'll help you find that. But then they just take advantage of you and they hurt you and they abuse people. And obviously, I mean, we don't have to look far to find stories like that out there in the world. So there's a lot of people that have been hurt, by spiritual leaders, by church leaders. And that really sucks. And I think what really sucks too is it causes people like myself and my family to not want to like chase that anymore. Like it causes us to be like, you know what? I don't want to have anything to do with church anymore. Or I don't want to have anything to do with spirituality. I don't want to have anything to do with God anymore. Which is really like unfortunate because, I truly believe that, God is love and like the things that we're looking for in life, the stress that we have, the anxiety that we have, I think we can find that peace and comfort in him. And there's so many people out there that block that and don't care about you. They care about getting rich, or they care about, their own physical desires, and they groom and they manipulate and they abuse people who are looking for things, who are hurt and broken and looking for things. So I guess, I mean, like, without going, too far into this, I guess, like, what I was thinking about this week is, if you're out there and that's been you specifically, like, a lot of people have stress and anxiety because of spiritual hurt, because of spiritual trauma and abuse that's happened to them. If that's you out there this week, I just want to, like, first of all, tell you, like, I feel that. Like, I still am dealing today with the effects of spiritual abuse that happened years ago. Both my wife and I are. We're both dealing with that. It's a real thing. It doesn't need to heal instantaneously. One of the things I love, when I've just been through, like, the first couple of chapters of this book by Hilary McBride, but one thing that she says is, like, look, you don't have to keep reading this. Like, she's like, I understand that reading through this stuff will, like, dig up these old emotions and make you feel certain things. And she's like, you can stop at any point. And I love that. Like, and I was like, I have to stop because, like, this is making me feel certain things. But if you've been through that, like, through that abuse, through that trauma, like, I'm there with you. Um, as a Christian, like, I apologize on behalf of, like, the rest of the Christian world. If that happened to you at the hands of Christians, because it should never be that way. I think there is a true, real version of Christianity. And unfortunately, like, we don't see it a lot, at least in America. We don't see it a lot. There's a lot of focus just on money and power and authority, and keeping people in line. So that's really unfortunate. So, I'm there with you, but I want to encourage you to also just, like, don't stop seeking that out. Whether it's just like you're at this point in your life where it's like, I want to, discover who God is, or if you're just at this point where it's like, I want to discover what, like, the spiritual side of me is. I think God can meet us there too. So don't give up on that. Like, I think it's, I think it can be such an amazing thing to, like, I was talking with actually an employee of mine the other day, and she was telling me, like, she had been through some pretty horrible things, not like church stuff, but like she'd been through some pretty horrible relationship. And she, like, recently has gotten plugged into a church in her town where she's just, like, going to a group with, like, people her age, and it's just like a support system. So it's like, maybe that's your lighthouse. Maybe your lighthouse, is finding a really great church with really great people. But maybe you're not there yet either. Like, don't jump into it if you're not ready for it. Take some time. Um, I don't know. I just, like, I want to encourage people out there. Maybe you are a Christian and you've been, like, genuinely hurt by the church. I want to encourage you to, like, continue to seek after God. Maybe you are not a Christian. I'm just encouraging you, don't just throw it all out because of the bad Christians that you've seen in your life. I think that there are good ones out there, and there is a good support system out there. And above and beyond, there's a God out there, I believe, that loves you, and a God that is love and wants better for you. And I think he's got a heart, and I think that heart breaks when people who claim to represent him do horrible things to you. And it's a real thing. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe it's something we'll talk about more in the future. Um, I know I keep saying it, I don't want this to be, super preachy at all, but, at the same time, I'm going to genuinely be myself, and my faith is a big part of who I am. And so it is something that I'm going to talk about from time to time. So yeah. But anyways, thank you guys for listening. Again, holler at us on Instagram at Dads Who Mosh. I am at Nate Who Moshes. You can email us. Email address is dadswhomosh@gmail.com. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully, I got some things in the works with some other guests and stuff like that. So stay tuned. Some really great dads that I've been talking to. That are also part of the hardcore community, whether it's like they love the music or they're in bands and stuff like that. So got some stuff coming up. So stay tuned. Appreciate you guys. Stay strong, and have a great week. Until next time. Later.